Good evening everyone and welcome to your planning committee. Right members, minutes of the last meeting. If you wish, I sign them as a true and correct record. Agree? Thank you. Sorry, yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Somewhere in the minutes, in the discussion of one of the applications, I made a request for information and the officer said that it could be provided. I haven't, until we haven't received anything. It was the issue concerning whether the percentage of affordable housing could somehow be spread over a number of applications, where it has been my understanding that it applies to each individual.
I remember your point.
Yeah.
Councillor made the point that does the percentage have to relate to one housing application, or can it be spread over several? It was because we had one that was all affordable.
I mean,
if somebody could give the information to me.
I mean, I can double check if there's anything additional to add to this, but usually at outline stage, outline permission is given on the basis, and it should be policy compliant. Because at outline stage, you wouldn't know whether there's going to be any issues with viability. Once you then, a good example would be Monksmoor. Once the detailed matters come through, the reserved matters come through, if they, and obviously the viability rules have changed recently since the new MPTF, but certainly when Monksmoor went through, each different phase, viability tests were submitted and the affordable levels were adjusted. So actually, the principle is that it should apply across the whole site, but that can vary depending on detailed matters, so reserved matters coming through.
Thank you, Chair. I will write, perhaps coming to yourself, putting my question perhaps a bit more precisely.
Thank you. Right. Policy instructions, please.
Councillor Daventry, Councillor.
Anybody know anything about Councillor Robertson?
Yes, he's flying out tonight on holiday.
He's flying out tonight.
Yes, so he sent us a
So he's not coming here before he flies. No.
Bit of a day.
Thank you. Otherwise, members' interests, the disclosable interest.
Yes, on the planning you can see there is an application for Councillor Longley, and Councillor Longley, besides being a councillor, is also a county councillor, and we work very closely together. So I just want to say that we are on the cabinet in Northamptonshire County Council together. So it's more than a councillor, but I haven't. I will judge the application completely fair.
Thank you.
Very obviously, Chair, that I've been interested in the application, so
you need to leave the room as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, there are two other county councillors, also Councillor Law and Councillor and myself, that are also county councillors. Right, party whipping arrangements.
No.
Members of the public, that means that we don't get together as party political people and judge how we're going to vote beforehand. Never have done, I hope, never will happen. Right, a good bit of housekeeping. You've heard all this before hundreds of times. The fire alarm bell, please, it rings. It will not be a practice. So please exit the room through the main doors where you came in. Do not try and use that exit just there. Please switch your mobile devices to silent, because the chairman of the council does sit over there and she's just waiting for one of them to go off. If it's an horrible tune, it's £10 and it's £5 if it's a decent one. Speakers will have 5 minutes and after that you'll hear a tone and be asked to stop. And that is the only opportunity for you to speak. Don't clap, hiss, cheer, boo, stand up, wave your arms or do anything like that. I mean, you're not going to. Did I say 5 minutes? I must be getting some Alzheimer's. Never thought I said that. Anyway, it's 3 minutes, not 5 minutes. And you'll see officers talking at the same time as you're talking, which looks bad manners. They're trying to get the answers so that the discussion carries on. Okay, we continue on to tell you about the delegated, whichever I can find them. We did have rather a long night, but now we've got 7 applications delegated. If the first application in Longbotby, which is 0860, is a delegated approval. The one in Daventry is 1021, is a delegated approval. On page 71, 1074 in Broadston is a delegated approval. On page 84, 1128, again in Longbotby, a delegated approval. Page 93, so on the glasses are a bit wobbly here. Yeah, it is 1131, yeah, delegated approval, that's in Clipston. And the next one, which is on page 99, is it? Yeah, is 0179, again a delegated approval. And the very last one, in Welford, is withdrawn. So it makes it a lot better than it could have been. So we start on the very first one, which is in Crick. Over to you, officer.
Thank you, Chairman. The site lies in the confines of Crick and presently forms part of the residential curtilage of 62 Main Street. The application before members tonight seeks consent for the construction of a 3-bedroom dormer bungalow with access from Chapel Lane. 2 parking spaces and a turning area proposed to allow vehicles to exit the site in a forward manner. Within this part of the village, the dwellings are of varied character and appearance, and it is considered that the proposed design will not be out of keeping or detrimental to this character. You'll see from the report that the objections have been received from both parish council and neighbours, and these relate primarily to the use of Chapel Lane to access the site and the impact of development on neighbouring dwellings. Some comments refer to the erroneous and unlawful granting of a lawful development certificate for 2016. That application confirmed that an access and works to create a high standing area of working with development. Equally, a number of letters of support have also been received, citing that the proposal is within a sustainable location with pedestrian access to local facilities and would provide a much more dwelling in the village without adverse impact on neighbouring dwellings. Regards the impact on neighbouring properties, amendments have been sought resulting in the removal of roof lights from the west elevation and the obscure glazing of the remaining ground floor windows. Privacy is maintained for occupants of 9A High Street. Regards the remaining properties which lie close to the site, that being 6 and 7 Chapel Lane, 58 Main Road and also those on Marsh Close, the proposal would be in excess of the distances cited in the District Council guidance. Regards the proposed access and use of Chapel Lane, it's acknowledged that Chapel Lane also serves as a public footpath, providing pedestrian access between High Street and the Marsh. The eastern half of Chapel Lane is historically used by the residents of 47 Chapel Lane for vehicle access. It's noted that the County Highway Authority have objected to the application on the basis that the Chapel Lane is a footpath of very narrow width and not for vehicle access, and the objections are raised for its usage for such purposes proposed. However, it should also be noted that the means of access already exists, and vehicle usage and movements would be no different from these existing circumstances. Officers therefore consider the impact would not be unacceptable on highway safety, nor would they be severe. Accordingly, Officer recommended the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. 3 speakers. First of all, Mr. Smith, who's against the application. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I live in, speaking on behalf of residents of Chapel Lane. Highway calculations in this application were carried out the wider parts of Chapel Lane at its junction with the Marsh, and are based on data for a typical residential dwelling. Properties of Chapel Lane, and notably the chapel, are not typical residential dwellings for the purpose of these calculations. Most vehicles associated with this purpose do not normally access a narrow parallel lane as they have no parking space. Historically, there were 5 parking spaces in the lane. The recently constructed and, in our view, incorrectly consented vehicle access at the rear of the retreat is unused and unusable by most motor vehicles. Presuming an increase of only 2 vehicles, this would give a 40% increase in the number of vehicle movements. The inspector's decision within the application cannot be relied on in this case. At paragraph 16 it states, access and parking is already in place and there is nothing before me to indicate there is any restriction on its use. As you have seen, the lane access is restricted by a telegraph pole and lamppost. Paragraph 17 states, I find the proposal will not result in an increase in vehicle movements. The applicants advise there will be a 14% increase in vehicle movements. We believe at least 40%. The visibility display as shown within the proposal cannot be guaranteed as the adjacent property could plant a hedge or erect a wall or fence along their boundary without any permission being necessary. All vehicles passing along Chapel Lane must pass within centimetres of existing property frontages. The lane is not a suitable access for large vehicles and damage has been caused by larger vehicles to properties. Refuse collections and larger emergency vehicles cannot access the lane. There is no opportunity or possibility for improvements to this highway. The increased vehicular use of Chapel Lane would be to the detriment of highway safety and severely negatively impact on the amenity of the existing residential properties. The lane is not a suitable access for construction vehicles. The negative impact of this development will be significantly intensified during the construction phase. We ask that you refuse this application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Jameson, Parish Council.
Chairman and members of the committee, I'm Jill Jameson from Crick Parish Council. We have objected to this planning application because we feel it contravenes many policies. Firstly, access is a major concern. Highways have also objected and stated access to the property is from a footpath, the N16, which does not have vehicular access. Safe Policy GM2 and Safe Policy EN42A seek to ensure that the development will have a satisfactory means of access. We have a photograph of a transit van unable to access the lane to make a delivery. The entrance point for the proposed site is particularly narrow at only 2.29 metres. The 2 poles are outside the application site and therefore beyond the control of the applicant, and a suitable relocation cannot be guaranteed. How therefore are builders' wagons going to offload their supplies without causing an extreme risk to pedestrians and adjacent properties? We must question if this is a satisfactory means of access. There is off-road parking for 2 cars, but we have evidence that anything larger than a medium-sized car will struggle to access the site. Visitors would therefore need to park nearby. Parking restrictions are currently being introduced at the junction of the Marsh and Main Road to try and regularise the current inappropriate parking, which already impedes visibility at this junction. We also have to question what harm it will do to the environment. As the planning officer states in her report, this proposal would be clearly visible from Chapel Lane and the surrounding properties and gardens. The application site, together with the rear gardens of the surrounding properties, currently present an open aspect to the lane, where any dwelling constructed on the site would likely alter the present character by introducing additional built form and, as such, distort the village layout of the central area, which is contrary to the village design statement. It is therefore contrary to Policy S1, which states further housing development will only be permitted where it would bring about environmental improvements. Policy S10 of the Joint Core Strategy requires development to protect, conserve and enhance the natural environment. Policy 8 of the Crick Neighbourhood Plan states, development of residential gardens will be supported only when it does not cause harm to the character of the area or the amenity of existing residents. Policy 11 of the NP states new development within Crick will only be supported where it makes a positive contribution to the distinctive character of the village. This pathway contributes a rural feel to the core of the village. Again, I ask you, would introducing built form close to the footpath enhance the natural environment, or would it cause harm to the character of the area? There is also the issue of flooding. Policy 11 of the Natural Policy states that the development should not increase flood risk elsewhere. The surface water flood risk map shows that the water runs down the length of the lane and to the junction of the Mars and the main road, where you can see the end result. The residents of this house have had to install flood-resistant doors to protect their property, and adjacent residents have also suffered flooding in recent years.
Can you please finish now?
Yeah. We are local and we know firsthand the problems that exist in the area, and I would ask you to consider the impact of it approving this application. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Now the applicant, Mrs. Smith.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Committee. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Planning Department for their guidance over the last few years. We've listened and made numerous amendments. My husband has lived in Crick since he was born in 1962. The family moved to the retreat in 1978, which has been our marital home since 2006. We have a vested interest, therefore, to ensure that Chapel Lane remains a quiet, friendly and pleasing place to live. Along our section of the main road, all neighbouring properties have further properties at their rear. Only the retreat has a garden twice the length of all of our neighbours. It's too large for even a keen gardener. Chapel Lane is tranquil lane in the heart of Crick. Its entrance has a chapel followed by 7 small cottages. You can reach the doctor's surgery, co-op, post office, church, pubs, all within 5 minutes walking distance. All the cottages run along the north side of Chapel Lane and have differing styles. There is a brick rendered doors, windows, styles, changing roof heights and colours. The bungalow will also have the look of a cottage that has been designed specifically to meet the needs of a retired person, a deficiency identified in Crick Village Neighbourhood Plan and thus supported by Policy Crick. The lounge and main bedroom have long windows specifically for the owner to enjoy the garden area from inside their home for periods when they can't go outside and enjoy it. Having longer windows is far more pleasing than staring at walls beneath the windowsill. In addition, there is an upper area reached by a staircase at the rear of the property which could be used by a living carer when the occupants are no longer mobile. Speeds of vehicles are extremely low on the lane, so it is very safe. It is not a through route, so no vehicles will pass the site. We have provided a report by expert highways engineers David Tucker Associates. We undertook both traffic and pedestrian counts at great expense. Their conclusions are clear and robust. The existing access and parking already has consent, and the proposed bungalow will replace the existing use, resulting in nominal, if any, additional traffic. There will be ample private parking, and DTA have provided a set of tracking drawings to prove how vehicles will be able to comfortably turn around and leave the site in a forward direction. The DTA report also demonstrates that pedestrian visibility is more than sufficient. On exit being slightly elevated, look left and you'll see the whole row of cottages. Look right and you can see the footpath leading to the high street. For additional safety, the wall will be lowered to a height of 600mm. This will also benefit the vision display for Chapel Lane numbers 6 and 7. Finally, Crick is our home. We see ourselves living in the village for the rest of our lives. We have proposed a small retirement property that will fit both the demographic and the character of the lane. If approved, the property will be number 8 Chapel Lane and will complete the lane. We do hope that you approve our proposal, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. The local member on the committee is flying, can't hold it. So it's over to you, Councillor Owen. Another local member. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Committee, I don't think there's a great deal that I can add to what's already been said. The fact that I think you've seen perfectly well from the photographs that Chapel Lane is narrow, the road service is very poor, and it's liable to flooding. I know that there are accesses already for vehicles, but that isn't any reason to add to them. However, you've heard what has been said already. I think what I would like you to concentrate on is the comments of the Highway Authority and of the Fire and Rescue Service, the late representations, and draw your own conclusions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Longley.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Catherine's covered several points I was going to make. In fact, that the consultation with the highways issues is a very negative report, unfortunately. On the plus side, we've got to support infill where we can. I mean, that's a good thing to have, and there's been quite a bit of support in here. On the downside, we've got problems with refuse, the access to footpaths, the highways issues, the fire, and on balance, I think there's too many negatives against the couple of positives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I assume that on page 14, the sections in italics are quotes from the submission by the Parish Council. Yeah. Well, I would not agree with a comment from the Parish Council than describing the marsh as a rat run. The use of the marsh as a way of avoiding, is it called the High Street or the Main Street? Travelling from the south to join the main road as a way of avoiding a horrendous junction if you need to take a right turn by the co-op. It is a sensible route to use, and I know that because I very often use it myself, and as a consequence I know where Chapel Lane, I know this area actually quite well. It was interesting to see the photograph of the transit van trying to use just that end of if you just hold on that I a couple of days ago tried to walk along there to look at the site because I had no idea how there was going to be access to a property there, and I had to walk along there with my dog, and until you reach the point at which you're not even allowed to use a bike or less a transit van. There is, I think it's been pointed out, access for for cars for some of the houses that you can see in the photograph there. But we find it quite difficult to find a place to get out of the way, even to let a car pass a pedestrian with a dog. I'm just amazed. Of course there is access there for houses, but they're for houses that have no doubt been there for quite some long period of time, and therefore there's a necessity for having access to them there. Why on earth you would want to put a house, build it now, in a position where access is simply so difficult? I just can't imagine. I know that the applicant says that the land is a small retirement property. If it is built, is there going to be any way in which there can be an insistence that it is there as a retirement home? It is there for anybody, presumably, who wants to buy or rent it, and people who may have certainly have more than one car within the household. I just see it that this particular lane, it's frankly very little use as a mechanism for pedestrians walking from one bit of creek to another. But it is nevertheless hugely valuable in that it is old creek. It is there. It is away from the modern estates that have probably spoiled much of the appearance and character of creek. But it is there with houses that have been there for a long time, with an old stone wall. It is a place where people go. It is a recreational footpath rather than anything else. And as Crick has been, in my view, not destroyed but severely damaged by the acres of nondescript estates that have been built around about it. I'm just horrified that there should be a proposal to actually build something here right in the centre of it. I just feel that the houses that are there are a mix that have obviously been there for a long, long period of time, and I would be very concerned about putting something else there right in the middle of this area.
Thank you. Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll put this diagram up to illustrate my point, if I may. The current property, at the current time, the access that you can see on the photographs is used as a back-way access for this property. What is proposed is that this property here will no longer be able to use that access, and the new build will be using it. So there's no change whatsoever to the existing access. That's established. It's just the change to the wall to make that safer. So up until this point here, all these properties have got that vehicular access. So that is already effectively in place. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear about what the usage is now and what is proposed. And then the other, just to answer your second point, I don't think we could reasonably apply any kind of a condition about this being for retirement only. It's not like it's part of a bigger application. I think I'll defer to our solicitor. I don't think that would be a reasonably applied condition. So in answer to your question, I don't think we could do that.
Yeah. Can we say something? My understanding is that the access will be just about the point at which the park knows, and there is a footpath sign and a no cycle sign.
There's a photograph showing that
area behind that line.
Point.
Yeah.
And it's already.
Now I understand that there is vehicle access up to that point. It is there for you can see where there's a parking lot for another house where you see the back of a car, and I think there's another one on the other side of the pathway.
You can't quite see them from Google Earth, but they're just past there, aren't they?
It is, yeah. But, by necessity, these houses have got their parking lots. It is not a thing that if these houses didn't exist, and we were as a planning committee thinking about them, say that it was an ideal arrangement where you have got a house where your access is so narrow that I don't know how that actually comes into it, but
well, that's what this is.
I think my
that's what.
That's what they propose.
That is, yeah. So that's the current access, and that is what the applicant referred to in their presentation. That is the proof, if you will, that is able to be used as an access, and that the vehicles using it can turn and come out in a forward-facing direction, which is actually different to some of the other usages this end, where I've got to presumably reverse that if you've only got spaces.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, Maria Isabella said what I was going to say. This is already an established access. They say the principle of an access has already been established. The property is in a sustainable location. The applicant intends to lower that boundary wall to make the visibility displays better. And it's a matter of perception, really. I mean, most of us are used to driving up people's driveways, which are not much wider than that, or even as wide as that. Careful to avoid their flower beds and not hit the corner of the house when you get into the garage, that sort of thing. Well, when you improve those visibility displays, that perception suddenly becomes wider. And of course the tracking time shows us that it's easy to turn that vehicle so you can come out without backing out onto that lane. To be honest, I can't see any reasonable planning grounds for refusing this application. And I'm sure if we were to turn this down and it went to appeal, it would go against us on appeal, because there are no reasonable planning grounds on which one could justifiably refuse. So, I'm quite happy to propose we go with officers' advice on this.
Right, do you have a second now? It appears not at the moment. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak now, Councillor Adam, or not?
No, not at the moment, thank you.
Reserve your right, you can, if you want to. Okay, Councillor Olga.
Sorry, mate, go back to the picture where it was the sign of the alleyway with the pedestrian, with the cycling sign, that one there. Right, so if I read it right, do vehicles already go past that post and into the parking? No, can you go back
Yeah, sorry.
there? Right, so the car's going to come up there and then go long past the telephone post and then right, is that right?
Yeah.
Right, do vehicles already do
They
that?
already do that.
They already do that, okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, they don't.
No, that's, just for clarification, I think there is some dispute as to how regularly that access is used, but the matter of fact is that that access does have consent, so there is opportunity and there's lawful consent for the existing property to use that access as it is currently shown.
So can a vehicle physically do that? Actually get into?
Yes.
That has, okay. That's not, sorry, Chair, I suppose it would be really right sales to say, I agree with Councillor James. There's already vehicles using that. I very much doubt people are going to be speeding down there and causing a nuisance. If vehicles can already negotiate that area safely and could get past that pinch point there, then and this is the big issue, and I agree with Councillor Longley about this is so tight and probably not the ideal place, but I'm struggling with the fact that vehicles already use it, and just because we're increasing it at very low speed with the ability of the vehicles to actually to manoeuvre, to come out forward facing, which is obviously the safest way to do it, I'm finding it very, very difficult not to go with officer on this one.
Councillor Swift, then Councillor Wesley.
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman. We have established that vehicle goes there, but what I am very concerned is the North Sands Fire and Rescue Services. If there is a fire and the fire service cannot access, can they come back to the council if something happens, or we will be above reprimand if something happens? That is something that we have to clarify by law, I think.
I think given that there is a deemed consent access there now, and there are lots of houses that can't be accessed out, door to door by emergency vehicles, the council would not be held liable. Are you suggesting that the council would be held liable if an emergency vehicle couldn't access the property?
They said that what it said is Northampton Fire and Rescue Services do not consider access to the proposed development to be adequate. And the proposal is unlikely to satisfy building regulation, which require a pump to be positioned. So if it doesn't satisfy building regulation, can we give planning?
It's actually covered on the late reps, Chairman.
Yeah.
And nevertheless, in the event of a fire incident, there are hydrants. I mean, there are lots of properties, including in quite modern estates, actually. Certainly where I used to live, loads of houses were not anywhere near the road. That's true of quite a lot of the property, and it's a workaround. Clearly, this wouldn't be allowed if it was a brand new estate being built from scratch, but it is what it is, and neighbouring houses are in exactly the same predicament.
Obviously, if we do look at the last sentence of the letter representations, it does also say that the inclusion of the electric sprinkler system
that would be
mitigate the issues of businesses as we have here.
Okay, Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Could we go back again to the picture, the cycling sign and the access point? Okay, could you just clarify, are we Are we saying that that red brick wall beyond the telegraph pole is going to be lowered?
Yeah.
That is the wall that will be reduced in height? Or will it be actually partly taken down and reduced in height? Just lowered.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right, there's no more others.
Can I just, Chair, I've got a question.
That's the other angle.
It's referred to somewhere within the documents here. Who actually owns the driveway to the footpath?
It's not, I don't think that's anything to do with planning, is it? Who owns it, or whether they can do it because of ownership of somebody else. You can apply for planning permission in somebody's garden, and as long as you tell them, you may never need to do it. They never allow you to do it, but you can apply for it. So it doesn't matter who owns it. It's a legal side. Correct? Right, we have a proposal, the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The application is approved. Well, we'll have a break just for a minute while people leave. Thank Right, the next application is in East Ham, and it's 1071 of the next two applications. What we intend to do is debate both applications and take two separate votes at the end, okay? So we'll be talking about both applications and two separate votes at the end. So two separate proposals and two separate seconders.
Thank you, Chair. This is a Grade 2 listed building within the village of East Haddon. The property is a linear property which has had a number of alterations to the rear which are not exactly sympathetic to the overall character. The proposal is to replace one existing flat roof with another and remove the other flat roof and construct a garden room extension. The scheme has been amended since the report was written, and also the description of the application needs amending to remove the link to the garage, because the actual overall, the course of the application, the actual garden room has actually been reduced in size. Although the scheme has been improved, it is considered the overall cumulative impact to the designated heritage asset is considered less than substantial. So you've still got those elements which are flat roof, or especially one which is a flat roof element, as well as a large extension, altering that linear format. The benefits, given that it's less than substantial, have to be weighed against the harm caused. There are very limited benefits. Yes, one of the chimneys and the flat roof smaller will be removed. The other one will be replaced with another very similar flat roof extension. Therefore, the harm is not outweighed by the benefits. The applications are therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have a speaker, Mr. Coy, who's the agent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Committee. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to make representations in respect of the applications before you tonight. The proposals have been subject to detailed topographical and building surveys upon which the scheme proposals have been presented, initially in the form of a pre-application inquiry, as alluded to in the officer's reports. During the pre-application process, various revisions to the scheme were suggested and adopted by the applicants prior to submitting a formal town and country planning application. During the present planning application process, further revisions were requested following a meeting on site and email exchanges, resulting in revised scheme drawings before you tonight. Following the revised scheme drawings, we received an email from the planning officer confirming that in planning terms he was satisfied with the impacts of the scheme in its revised format, but advised the need to consult with the conservation officer, who at the time was unavailable. We have endeavoured, Mr. Chairman, to present an application before you tonight which should have the support of officers. However, that still appears not to be the case as far as the conservation officer is concerned. Due to the apparent ongoing impasse, we consider it appropriate that members should be given the opportunity, which they have, to determine the application for themselves. We are open-minded to any suggestions by members to amend the scheme if it would mean the applications can be approved, and would prefer, if needs be, for the applications to be deferred rather than refused. Members will note the Conservation Officer's suggestion that a new building could be placed within the rear garden. However, this would not be very practical, in our view, more likely to have a detrimental impact upon the setting of the house and the garden, and in effect serve no particular purpose or benefit to the occupation of the cottage. As members, you are at liberty to make your own decision despite the recommendations before you tonight. This opportunity is particularly relevant bearing in mind the planning officer is content as far as the principle of granting planning permission is concerned. Finally, it is our view that there are significant benefits through the proposals before you tonight which outweigh any disadvantages that have been expressed in the Conservation Officer's report. We have endeavoured with the applicants to exhaustively reach a reasonable compromise that provides genuine improvements to the appearance, setting and occupation of the property, and ask you to consider overturning the recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You are going to speak twice, so if you want to say anything else, you can do.
You'll probably be relieved to know that's it for me.
You're happy?
Yes.
Well, you're usually clearer to the point with your presentation.
Can I just explain the three pictures before Councillor? I think it might be helpful, Chairman.
Right.
So this is the original scheme as submitted. So it was that's a taller extension.
Yes.
It has now been revised to this. So it's a single-storey extension. So that's what it would look like from the rear, from the side. And the Conservation Officer is happy with that, but would prefer that that's what's just been requested, it should be removed.
Yeah.
And that would make it completely acceptable. So that is the remaining point of contention. Is that fair to read?
That's from my understanding from speaking to the Conservation Officer, yes. The scheme has actually improved, whereas potentially, there's still, even though the extension might still cause harm and potentially it's still slightly larger than what they may like, but on balance, it's potentially tipping more in favour if that flat roof extension was removed. So you've still got that nice linear nature of that rear building. In addition, yes, it is noted that the applicant and the agent have been working with officers to try and overcome concerns. In planning terms, in the sense of the loss of amenities to neighbouring properties, impact on the street scene, that the standard value sort of things is acceptable. What the impact of the issue is really about the impact on the designated heritage asset, which, as members are aware, we've really got to consider, and especially if the harm is considered to be less, or if there is harm, it's either substantial harm or less than substantial harm. Now, even with less than substantial harm, we've got to weigh the benefits against the harm. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. There's no local member here from that area, so Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, what the speaker said that they have worked very hard with Councillor a long day to try to reach an agreement. So if I understand correctly, the only objection is that little bit.
If we go to the photographs, you've got two flat roof extensions in this picture. So you've got a smaller one with a chimney on it.
Yeah.
That is planning to be removed. Which yes, is a benefit.
Yes.
Offers some knowledge. But the other one is going to be pretty much replaced on the similar scale and also with the flat roof as well. So you've got that as well as a larger garden room extension over to the left going out towards the garage element. Now as you can see by the photos, it's very much a traditional linear building. Now, yeah, we know that those extensions don't really do anything to the aesthetics of the listed building, but they're there. Now what has been suggested is if both of those single-storey elements are removed, the construction of a garden room would be acceptable.
So can I, because as you know I have a listed house too, so I know how thorough our conservation officer is. Nevertheless, for me, regardless of the two back extensions, which are not very nice, but are there. So the house is listed, and I can say that because my house had a lovely extension at the back and was listed as such. So you can argue that the house is listed with the back extension, regardless. So basically what we have to discuss is the new extension, and that the new extension has been agreeable to all parties because they went through a consultation process. So I think it's a question now for us as a panel where I don't understand is that the house being listed with those three little elements. You have the first little what it's called with a flat roof, you have a flat roof and another flat roof. That is part of the listing, and I remember to be told I could not remove a part of a listing. Now we said if we take all the linear and add the back extension, we could do something. For me, the only consideration I would have, and I have worked with our planning officer, our conservation officer, it's the most important is the new aspect and the new garden room. And if the garden room is agreeable, I think we could go against officer advice. So I will leave other member to say, but otherwise I would be quite happy to go against officer advice in that case.
Are you making a proposal or
yes,
not?
Please.
Now we need a planning reason why.
That it caused no harm to the building.
Which is a slight improvement.
Well, Catherine will come back. Do you want to think of your reasons?
Yes, if you want.
Think of your reasons while Catherine comes back and gives you an answer. I'll come over to...
Sorry, Chong will come back.
Chong will come
Okay, Councillor Chan, sorry.
Yeah, could you show us the drawing again, please? And could you make it bigger so I can...
Which one do you want me to make bigger?
I'm interested in this east elevation at the lower right, Thank you. Now, in my view, that what appears to be a link between the garden room and the thing is lower and does provide some sort of visual separation. And so
sorry, I've lost it.
I can see why that would be acceptable.
It's a deliberate separation from the existing modern the glass.
So it's trying to make it as simple as possible. I think I suppose it's the impact overall. Yeah. Yes, the building was listed probably with those extensions on it, but then again, they're of their time.
Yeah.
Yes, there's an argument of its building's history.
I think we will all agree they're not pretty.
Yeah, they're not pretty, and considering it's such a linear building, adding another flat roof extension off it further moves away from that lovely linear building. Whereas if you get rid of the flat roof element, or both flat roof elements, then you've got at least quite a lot of the back which is still linear, whereas with the garden room.
And when you look at it, Chairman, it does still look like a linear building, which I think was its chief characteristic when designated as a heritage asset. You know, surprisingly, as the heritage champion, I think I could support it now.
I'm going back to you, Councillor Roberts. Have you thought of any planning reasons yet?
Well, the reason for your refusal is the design of the proposed rear extensions is not in keeping with the character. So we will see it's in keeping with the character, or I don't know, because basically they follow the direction when you are listing building. You have to see the progression, and they have put that corridor or that glass separation, so they are, you can see the new. So that is a plan, because in turn you have to show it cannot be a pastiche of the original.
And it could be removed.
Yes, and it can be, it doesn't cause any harm to the building.
Again, through you, Chairman, just wanted to bring members' attention to paragraph 200, where we're talking about, yes, because of the flat roof extensions there, then, yeah, you've got to have them there because they're part of the history. But then again, paragraph 200 of the MPPF talks about revealing NG, or revealing the significance should be encouraged. So therefore, by removing some of the elements and then creating another extension, makes a positive contribution to that listed building. I think what we're trying to say is there's just too many extensions to that rear of the property to not reveal the significance of that building.
So happy with these. It's just suggesting that additional element is also removed as part, and then we'd be having a recommendation for approval.
So, do you want to make a recommendation for approval? Do you want to give a reason or not?
Well, I just did.
Okay.
I don't know how to phrase it a bit better.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you. You don't wish to reserve your right to speak now. Okay, Councillor Chapman.
Yes, I don't know if I have anything to add, but I'll wait and hear what others have to say.
Right, the next person to speak is Councillor Orga, then it's Councillor Downs, then it's Councillor Ritchie.
So, what is the problem with removing, as suggested by officers? Is there an issue about removing it?
The applicant hasn't been prepared to do that.
It's been suggested, but obviously through that suggestion, that it just hasn't been.
And is that going to be revisited? So presumably the applicant is just going to get...
Just to clarify, this is as far as the applicant is prepared to take it.
Oh, right, okay.
So it is a recommendation for refusal on the basis that that remains an area that...
So if those two would go, then everybody would be happy. But it's because the applicant wants to continue to have their cake and eat it sort of thing. Okay.
Which one?
Which one?
The smaller one with the chimney.
That one's going. And that one goes. And that needs to go as well for it to be. Okay, right.
I think having cake and eat it is a bit of an unfair thing.
Okay, sorry, sorry.
I'm sure you didn't mean it unfairly.
No, I didn't feel
that kind of person.
Yes, the conservation officer entirely agrees the garden room
Yes.
is acceptable because it's separated.
Yes.
It's just that one remaining.
Okay, councillor Dowd,
Yeah.
who is next?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer that we go with officer's recommendation and refuse it. I think we've got some horrible bits added onto the house, as we can see there, one of which will remain. I don't see how putting this new modern structure on adds anything. I think the whole thing is a horrendous idea. If the back was tidied up by removing those items, those flat roof constructions, that would be a great improvement from what I can see. Maybe it makes it less livable, but it's a listed building at the end of the day. It's not necessarily meant to be easy. So I agree with what officers have said. Don't like it, don't like what has been suggested. I think even with the removal of that extension that we see on the right there and put the new construction in, I don't see that that's acceptable either. But that's not really the question here. I would say on the plans we have in front of us, accept officers' advice.
Thank you, councillor Ritchie.
Well, when I put my hand up, it had been my intention to propose something different from what has been proposed. I mean, it strikes me that there has already been a period of discussion, negotiation. The way it's been put to us suggests that it isn't quite amicable, but whether or not that is the case, there is certainly, it seems to be a willingness on both sides to find something that is acceptable, but the conservation officer does not feel that that discussion has arrived at that point yet. And I just wonder if this has been brought to us earlier than it needed to be, so that some of these things could be ironed out. I would feel very uncomfortable. I mean, looking at that photograph, I don't see anything there that strikes me as particularly beautiful that I would want to preserve. The roof, perhaps. But beyond that, we do, after all, we do have, we do have policy, we have got legislation, and we employ a conservation officer. And I just feel that if we employ a conservation officer who is unhappy with it at its present stage, but feels that, yes, that a little bit further discussion could come up with something that the conservation officer felt happy with and would suit the applicant of, not necessarily exactly what the applicant would originally have wanted to do. But I wonder if this is the stage. I know that we're constantly told that we can't modify or suggest modifications in an application that has been brought. And for that reason, if it is actually put to the committee, I feel I have got to vote against. But I would be voting against in the hope that obviously the hope that it would be that the application would be refused, but that it would go back and it would soon come back with the refinements needed to make it seem acceptable.
If I might come back, Chairman, this application is before the committee purely because it's a councillor's application. In normal circumstances, if the normal discussions between officers and applicants didn't result in, that's what, for planning applications, officers are there to negotiate, to find a way to make the development acceptable. It is slightly different for listed buildings because you're all about protecting the listed building. But ultimately, this would have just been a refusal, an officer refusal, except that it's a member's application. So that's the only reason it's here. And she wouldn't be in a position to be doing a refusal, except that all of those negotiations have been exhausted. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not amicable. That's just planning, that's just conservation.
Unless any member, had asked within the required time for the application to be heard by committee and given a planning reason for doing it, for it being heard by committee. It wouldn't have been delegated in that case.
But any council application has to come to committee.
Otherwise, yes, yeah. That's right. Okay, the next person is Richie Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify that last point? It has to come to committee because it's a council application, whether it's refused or accepted.
The council can't, no officers can be delegated for anything that owned by the council either.
Okay. I have to say, I'm a bit perplexed by this one. It's which way to go. I'm still juggling that. It does seem like Councillor Daventry has explained and has quite rightly said that this is a listed building with 2 flat roof extensions on it that are subsequent to the original build of the building, and in essence have probably had a detrimental effect. But it is listed with those two items on the back. So that has actually happened. But we're now saying that one of those is going to go, and another one is going to be built in place of the other one, in essence, although it remains the same. Now, it's just. I can quite see why the Conservation Officer is saying what they're saying. It is listed as it is listed. But at the end of the day, is this really, really, really going to have a detrimental effect to anything? And I think I can understand the rules and the regs, but in 50 years' time, this is just going to be a 50-year-old extension on the back of it, and then someone might be talking about changing it again. And people will be saying that this is an existing building, and it looks as it looks, but it is part of the heritage. Blah blah blah. I think what's been done to it has been done to it, and I don't see this as taking a great deal away from it, particularly as it's not altering the fundamental structure of that listed building. So I think probably on balance we have to say, yeah, let's go.
Thank you. Yes, did you wish to speak against that? No, okay. If there's no more contributions, we have a proposal. Sorry?
Sorry, I've been thinking
Yes,
about
right, you
Yes,
did,
I will. Yes. I agree with perhaps one person on here. I don't like that as an extension. I'd rather see it without that. I see that the cottage itself is mid-18th century and Grade 2 listed. I take it from about there. Whereas these two extensions are mid-late 20th. So I'm not sure if it's a listed building how they managed to get those put on. I'd rather see them without those. So at the moment, I would go with officer's advice.
It may have been listed after those extensions were built. Which is unlikely. It's like reading planning history, I didn't see anything for extensions.
It does say it here.
Yeah,
Flat two single flat roof extensions to the rear which date from the mid-late 20th century.
But planning history, where it potentially could have been done under the community development at the time. So we've had a planning application.
This is a quick one. Councillor Officer.
Because my house was listed in 1970, and the extension was 1950, and it was listed with the extension.
But for you, Chairman, if you had a proposal to adapt that involved removing that extension into something more in keeping with the original, that is something that can happen. I mean, you can't work to the later edition, but that's not to say you couldn't provide a heritage improvement by making some proposal change.
I could not destroy the extension.
That's not necessarily the case. I think that is something you could discuss with the Conservation Officer.
But
it wasn't in keeping.
I don't think we're discussing that planned application actually.
But as a principle, yeah.
Officers, we've had listed building applications here before where we see the reason why the building was listed, and there's something tatty built onto it in the last sort of 100 years that doesn't match the building, and yet there's something else is proposed to be added on as well. Members have very often said, I wish we could get rid of the other bit that was built in between, but we were told at the time that we can't get rid of it because it was part of the listing.
But clearly in this case, the Conservation Officer has been seeking to negotiate more aesthetic change along those lines, which is her job.
If we just come back to what now as members we should be looking at. One of the things we should be looking at is we should be looking at opportunities, opportunity to either enhance or better reveal the significance of that listed building. And where that is the case, And in this particular case, the conservation officer does feel that the removal of that flat roof extension would be a great opportunity to better reveal the significance of the building, and hence her request to remove that. The link itself has been agreed to be acceptable because it does maintain the significance of the listed building and wouldn't result in any harm, whilst at the same time allowing the residents of that property to put further accommodation. I think we all agree that with listed buildings it's a very difficult task. Progress does have to be made. We still do have to ensure that our current lifestyles can be accommodated in those buildings, but at the same time we still have to have regard to what the significance of those buildings are and what opportunities we can take to remove those elements which have harmed the past.
Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those against?
5.
The application is approved. We're talking about the first application, okay? We haven't had a proposal for the second application yet. No. Well, we need a proposition now for the second one. Are you making the same proposition? Councillor Irving Swift, same proposition. Right, do you have a second? Same vote?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Chandler. Any discussion? Well, we've had the discussion. So there's a proposition to approve that application. All those in favour again, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 5. Right, both applications are approved.
Through you, Chairman, we need some conditions for the proposed extension. Are you giving joinery details to be
Oh yes, as normal, because...
We will expect the planners to put the normal conditions.
The material...
Joinery materials, that sort of plans.
Yes, please.
Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. If you could call the councillor back in, somebody. He's probably gone to sleep by now. Right, the next application is in Wilton and it's 1104.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for a burning combination boiler to the outside of a property in Wilton. It is retrospective, so it is there already, as you can see by the photos. The close is a modern estate and the boiler is situated to the side of the property set back from the close itself. It is considered a proposal not to result in an adverse impact to the character and appearance of the locality given its siting and size. Concern has been raised regarding the impact on the neighbouring properties through noise and disturbance and odours. The Environmental Health have raised no objection to the proposal and have investigated complaints. They've concluded that there are no statutory nuisances have occurred on the site. Therefore, the boiler does not cause an adverse impact to the amenities of the adjoining properties. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Now we have two speakers. Mr Manning, who's against the application. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. My name is Gordon Manning and I live at number 2 Lantern Rise. The boiler has been positioned right in front of our lounge window. We consider that the boiler does spoil the aesthetic appearance of the cul-de-sac. We have noticed that when people enter the road, their attention is immediately drawn to the plume of steam cascading from the front of number 1 Lantern Rise. And it is not an attractive sight. It is not in keeping with other properties in the road, all of which have their boilers located to the rear. Although the noise from the boiler is not classed as statutory noise, we can assure you that from our front bedroom we can hear the boiler firing up early in the morning. We also hear the boiler from our lounge in the evening when we try to relax, and in both cases this is without the windows being open. 4 neighbours in the cul-de-sac have told us that they can hear the boiler noise from their drives. Furthermore, we have never had the opportunity of any of the officers coming into our house to actually hear the noise for themselves when the boiler is operating. As the planning officer has observed, in certain weather conditions, the steam emissions travel over to our windows at number 2 Lantern Rise, which creates a nuisance for us in our lounge. In addition, the fumes are very strong and noticeable. Now that the weather is warmer, and when we are in the garden, we can actually taste them. The boiler will still be operating in the summer months when we like to enjoy having our windows open. In the original plans, an entrance door was to have been positioned right in front of our lounge window. This was rejected by the planning department. Now we have something which is much, much worse. Overall, this has now spoilt the residential amenity of our much loved family home, which we have owned for over 35 years from new. For all these reasons, we submit that the boiler is located in an inappropriate position, and we ask the committee to reject this application. Thank you.
Mr. Lye, the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, I've got the report from Mr. Allen, and I agree totally with what he has to say. The only thing I would do, the picture there will say it's not front lounge window, it's the side window, quite a minor window. But having said that, I'm willing to do anything possible to mitigate any disruption or inconvenience. But as I say, the report makes it very clear that I've done what I can.
Thank you. Because somebody might say, I didn't realise that the gentleman just spoke that we know each other. I'm the county councillor for Wilton, and that gentleman used to be a parish councillor at Wilton.
Yes, I take my parish council.
That's the only way we know each other. We don't know each other any other way, and I didn't know you were coming to speak tonight.
Well, I didn't know you would be here.
Okay.
It's been some years since we last met.
It is indeed. Thank you, sir. Right. Committee. That's a good one for you, isn't it? Councillor Irving-Swift, you have a go first.
Well, I will have tried. I can see, well, as we always said, it's very sad when two neighbours fall out, and for a boiler it's even sadder. But it's two things, the noise and the plume. So, I know a boiler can be noisy. My boiler is noisy, but it's inside my house and it doesn't bother anybody else. Now, I think it's not the size of the boiler because it's quite neat, so it's just the noise and the plume. And the noise, as the first applicant said, he can hear it. It would have been helpful if he had a monitor inside his house to tell us how much it was, because that will have allowed us to monitor or to see if it was a nuisance and really things. And other things, the plume, how often that happens, and if there will be a fence between the two houses, will be mitigating the effect of the boilers. That is what I would like to ask. A little 6-foot fence in wood, 50 feet down, will it be a way of mitigating between the two neighbours? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I think that it might just block the view, but I don't know that it would have actually any mitigation. And just to be really clear, the first stage of any noise investigation is not to put noise monitors inside a home. Officers will go out and witness, and only if they believe there may be enough noise emitting from the source will they carry that on. And that would only because they've witnessed it or because there's been noise logs that demonstrate that, noise is woken people or whatever. But it's well below anything that could be deemed as statutory noise nuisance. In terms of steam, that's pretty typical of modern condensing boilers. Down my own street, you see that all year round coming out of the vents at ground level. At everyone's house. So I mean that is steam from a fully normally functioning boiler.
Did you indicate, Councillor Leslie, or not?
Yeah,
I thought it might. You're on.
Thank you. Councillor Evans sort of covered it. I mean, I think if that boiler was internal, you would still be getting that steam coming out of the side. Unfortunately, I do think it's a real shame that this is causing aggravation.
Yeah.
As far as noise goes, I don't think is that a planning issue or is it an environmental health issue? I think it's
Well, through you, Chair, but it would be a planning issue if there was environmental health concerns, but there aren't.
Yeah, so there's not. We can't invent. We can't actually take somebody's word for it. It's annoying. It is annoying, if you see what I mean, and that's the end of it. I do agree that I think it's unfortunate that someone hasn't tried to mitigate this, and I think maybe we should actually ask. I personally do think some sort of fencing or blocking in of this boiler would actually help. It would certainly mitigate the noise to a degree, and I also think it would probably cause a disturbance of that. Of the steaming, and may even divert it upwards or condense it on the fence. And I think that's probably the way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Organ.
Yeah, I thought that's why we had chimneys, wasn't it? So that you can...
That's very practical you are.
Yeah, but the reality of that is I'd be very, very concerned if that was knocking out because you think it's toxic, but of course it's only steam. Yeah, I know. It's only steam. And I've just realised I've been dodging mine thinking it was toxic, and I've been just dodging steam. So because I've got the same problem coming out the side of my house onto my driveway. So I see that it does look dodgy, if you know what I mean. And I don't know whether a chimney would even be probably more unsightly, because the actual unit itself is pretty innocuous, isn't it? Well, I was thinking, what on earth is this really a planning application? The thing's no bigger than a washing machine, but I think that I don't know what the two individuals can do to come to some sort of determination, but I can't see it being a major issue. It's not toxic. There's not a noise problem, and I would go along with officers' advice on this one. I propose it. Yeah.
Do you have a second there? I think you were just beaten, Councillor, by the man behind you.
That's all right.
Jessie James was always very fast.
If I might clarify, I don't think we could actually require a fence, because that, as a condition, we'd have to be saying that that's necessary to mitigate the harm, and I don't think we can say that as officers. Furthermore, there was a suggestion about, fencing it in. Actually, this is an outdoor vent that is supposed to be going out to fresh air, so you couldn't do that. That would probably be against building regs and be sending the the steam back in, which is absolutely not.
Sorry, Ray, and presumably a chimney would require planning permission as well.
Yeah, and actually, going back to that point you made in your comments, it is borderline whether this is even development, whether it actually needed a planning application. If you ask planners, half say it does, half say it doesn't, so it's one of those.
So could it just be
Another man on another day might have made a different decision that it's not even a planning application, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Ritchie.
I'm getting slightly confused here. You say that there's not environmental health grounds, it doesn't constitute a noise nuisance, and so on, which raises the question, well, why on earth are we sitting here discussing it? I hope you will tell me at some stage. I'm not convinced by any of these arguments. I think that looks extraordinarily antisocial, having that there. I would be taking any action I could if I had found that a neighbour had decided to put a boiler there. I'm sorry we haven't arrived at the point yet when we can outlaw things that are as environmentally unfriendly as oil burners. But we can't actually do that at the moment. But that strikes me as, unacceptable. You say that it is only water vapour. Are you sure? There's a smell to it. You often get smells that come out of gas burners.
If it's anything other than water, like red Councillor Ritchie, then there's something wrong with the boiler and you need to get somebody else to sort it. Because that's what
unfortunately, loads and loads of people who have oil burners have got something wrong with the burners or haven't got them set properly, and you do get smell. I don't know about that one. But look, can I ask another bit of information? You say that the noise doesn't breach standards. Well, noise has got to be actually fairly loud before it is actionable. The difficulty with these things is not that it is suddenly going to be as if somebody is striking up with an electric guitar and amplifier in the next room. It's just that you have got the incessant going on and off, sometimes early in the morning, at odd times with this background noise coming on and on. If I lived in Copeland, I would like to think I was in Copeland because it's not exactly quiet in relation to traffic noise and everything else. But to think that you are away from having the background whine that comes from something like this. And I don't see any reason, there must be loads of things that are on the market because I've seen them in various houses where you can get they can effectively be boxed in to reduce that noise if it is there. And as Councillor Arger says, most places have got a flue if they have got fumes or vapour to take away from the area. But from what we have been told, it's not clear to me what planning reasons we can use to actually say that look, something has got to be done.
Correct. I've got to say that 9 times out of 10 you probably wouldn't even have been accepted as a planning application. In fact, it was very close to being delegated, I can assure you. It's not an easy one for you to do with committee on, but you will probably never see one of these again. Councillor Downs.
Yeah, I think in some respects I echo some of what Councillor Ritchie said, but when we're talking about putting a fence up, I noticed it's on page 82 where there seem to be covenants against construction of fences and so on. It's supposed to be open and so on. I don't know whether those are still active, still relevant and so on, but if that is a position, you're not going to be building a fence there. It would strike me that a flue is some sort of answer to this. They get the gases out of the way. I find it hard to believe it is just steam, it's just water vapour. I can't believe that this is a diesel boiler. We're all hearing the news about diesel cars and all the nitrous oxides that they're pumping out, and damaging children's lungs, for instance. On that basis, would you want to live next door to it and breathe it in? I don't think so. So I think at the very least he should have that, the gases taken away, upwards and away, rather than being allowed to blow wherever on the neighbours. I think most people don't sit and sniff their exhaust fumes of their boilers, whether gas or oil or otherwise. And I think also that it's a retrospective application, isn't it? And looking at the information in here, it seems like all the other houses have their boilers at the back. And I know it's a marginal case that maybe it would never have come to planning if somebody decided to place it at the back and they just did it. Maybe it would never have come to planning, but it is here in front of planning. It is at the side. It's not where it's everybody else's budget. So I think on the basis that there's an obvious pollution there. I don't care whether it's water vapour. I don't want to sit in a cloud in my front room. So I think, on the basis of that, we should not accept it. I don't think it's acceptable.
Officers, can you put that comment right to the pollution?
To be honest, I know sort of pollution may have come up today, so I did go specifically up to our environmental health colleagues this afternoon, straight this morning, to talk to them whether there's going to be an issue with this combination boiler. And they said there's no issue regarding odour or pollution. So in the sense that it would be very difficult for us to refuse an application on that basis.
What's the cause of this? What's the cause of this burnt smell then that is reported on in here, or a burning smell? I forget what the words were exactly, but obviously some sort of.
Through you, Chairman, this is a domestic formula. So what's coming out of there is steam. It's obviously a cold day because you see that sort of amount of steam on a really cold winter's day, but on a normal day you occasionally see the odd bit of steam. If there was pollution coming from that, then environmental health can absolutely deal with that. If there was, acrid smells, noxious fumes, whatever. But actually, this is not some industrial plant. This is a domestic boiler doing what it's supposed to be doing next to a domestic property. So, in planning terms, citing concerns about pollution is not something that we can go with at all.
Councillor Frost.
When you burn oil, it produces carbon dioxide. So where is it going? If you're saying that it's what is happening to what's happening to the carbon dioxide that's being produced from the combustion from this?
It's no different to any other sort of normal household flue which comes in. I know, as Maria mentioned earlier, that there's lots of properties which have got little flues from their boilers which go out.
Sorry, I don't mean to talk over you in future. I know that. And it's also the case, isn't it? The oil boilers produce 30% more carbon dioxide than normal gas. And there's one that you referred to, but you're right, we all see them. The vast majority of those boilers use gas, which produces 30% less carbon dioxide. My point is that, I suppose I'm questioning I think that those, and to Councillor August's point as well, in that gas that you're looking at there must be carbon dioxide, because where else is it going otherwise?
It's not anything harmful, otherwise nobody would be able to just vent their domestic boilers outside the house or place them outside the house. It's perfectly legitimate under regulations to do that.
Sorry, I know that, but what I mean is the point was made earlier that is simply water vapour, i.e. hydrogen and oxygen, isn't true, is it? There is carbon dioxide in there, and furthermore, there's 30% more carbon dioxide than there would be if it was a natural gassing. So back to your point about you breathing it in, I don't think you wouldn't want to be inhaling it all day, that's for sure.
Councillor Chandler.
The carbon dioxide goes upwards. The water vapour condenses into the water droplets, which don't go upwards, they go wherever the airflow is taking them. It's that simple. And the earlier comment about noxious fumes from diesel engines, that's true, but this combustion of this oil is not the same as the combustion that takes place inside a diesel engine. It's a matter of simple science, Chairman.
Yeah, but you're a genius, aren't you? Thank you. Thank you,
Where
Councillor
did
Chandler.
the pollutants go then?
So there's the lesson. Sorry, Councillor Brown.
It's just a quick statement. Our environmental health officers that we've got here are very good. Now this gentleman, I take this gentleman or lady anyway, have been out and looked at it and they say there's no problems at all. It isn't a statutory nuisance, and what they've seen and everything else, their complaint is now closed. They're happy with the way it is. They know a lot more than we do on here, so I'm happy to go along with them.
Thank you. Right. Do we have a proposal?
We did, Chairman, we've got...
Sorry.
Just one point, Chair. I did notice that the applicant had his hand up, and I wondered if he was going to offer some mitigation or something.
We don't normally let you speak again, but you can tell us there's no gap in Will.
Thank you. I was just going to say 2 points, as a matter of fact. First of all, we only
If you can
have...
make it quick, because you're not supposed to
Sorry,
speak.
we only have oil in the village other than solid fuel or caloric gas. And the other issue, I think you've just covered in that the environmental people have cleared it. Worcester Bosch also came down. I got an engineer to come down and write a report, which I submitted to Mr. Allen. And that, I think, is somewhere within the body of his report.
Thank you, sir. Right. There is a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8.
Those against?
8.
The application is approved. But by the sound of it, there is a willing neighbour to do anything he can to help you should you require something. So at least you can speak to each other. Anyway, that concludes the planning committee meeting. Thank you for attending.